he wanted to eat my soul. No, not in some dramatic, scary way. I mean it in the way he looked at me. Like he saw something in me that even I forgot existed. Like he wanted to consume every little piece I kept buried, every part I'd silenced, ignored, and boxed away just to survive my daily life. That look, it was dangerous, addictive, honest in a way that made me ache. You can judge me if you want. Go ahead. Call me the villain in someone else's story. But here's the truth. People don't just wake up and decide to destroy their lives. They drift. They starve. They get invisible. And my story? It didn't begin with lust, or betrayal, or some hot, wild fantasy. It began in silence. The kind that echoes through a house even when it's full of people. It began in the tiny moments, folding the laundry while my husband stared at his phone, cutting vegetables while my kids argued in the background, smiling for pictures I didn't feel part of. And then one day, Noah walked into my kitchen. He was just dropping off something for his aunt next door. That's all. But he looked at me, really looked, and for the first time in years, I felt awake. I'm 35. He's 22. Yeah, I know how that sounds. Cheating story. Younger man affair. Reddit confession. Forbidden love. I've read the headlines too. But those words don't even begin to describe what happened between us. Because this wasn't about sex. Not really. It was about being seen. It was about breathing again. It was about remembering I was a woman, not just a role someone needed me to play. He shouldn't have looked at me that way. And I shouldn't have looked back. But I did. And that moment, quiet, fleeting, totally ordinary, changed everything. This is the story of how I lost myself and found something I wasn't ready for. This is the truth I've never told anyone. So, if you're still here listening, come closer. Because I'm about to tell you how it really happened. And I'm not leaving anything out. Not this time. I was folding laundry when I saw him again. Noah. He used to run through my backyard with my son barefoot, loud, all skinny knees and tangled curls. I remember wiping grass stains off his jeans when he came over for popsicles in the summer. But that day he walked through my back gate holding a toolbox and a tired smile, and I didn't see the boy anymore. I saw a man, taller, broader, and the way he looked at me, it lingered. Not in a creepy way. Just aware. Like I wasn't invisible anymore. Like I was something to see. And I know how this sounds. But hear me out. I'm Danielle. I'm 35. Stay-at-home mom. 2 kids. Married for 11 years. My husband, Michael, is kind. He is. He works hard, provides, never yells. But somewhere along the way, we stopped talking, like really talking. Now we're just polite. Like roommates passing in the hallway, sharing to-do lists and school drop-offs instead of kisses or stories or dreams. My days? They're a blur of laundry, leftovers, and feeling like a shadow in my own house. The kind of woman who smiles at neighbors, remembers the pediatrician's number by heart, but hasn't been asked how she's really doing in what feels like forever. So when Noah, now 22, freshly moved back to town to help his aunt after a bad fall, walked through my yard and offered to fix our leaning fence, I felt something shift. It was little things at first. I brought him a glass of water while he worked in the sun. I remember wiping my hands on my apron, nerves fluttering in my stomach like I was back in high school. He took the glass, smiled, and nodded at the stack of books by the window. "You're into Murakami?" he asked. I blinked. No one ever asked about my books. "You're the first person to notice those in years," I said. He laughed, then looked right at me. "You have good taste." That was the first crack. I started noticing the days I wore a little lip gloss before he came over. Or how I lingered by the window, watching him fix the fence, paint the porch, mow the side yard. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even conscious at first. We'd talk about music, books, that weird, quiet ache of trying to find your place in a world that keeps telling you to stay in your lane. He asked me once, while replacing a broken slat in the fence, "Do you ever paint anymore?" I looked at him, confused. "I saw the easel in your sunroom," he added. "The way the light hits the canvas, you should still be doing it." Michael never noticed that easel. That night, I pulled it out, brushed dust off the corners, laid down strokes of color for the first time in years. A few days later, Noah saw it sitting near the door. He stepped inside, just a little, looked at the painting like it meant something, then gently, almost reverently, ran his fingers along the edge of the canvas. Our hands grazed, and I froze. My breath caught in my throat like I'd forgotten how to breathe around someone who saw me like that. He didn't say anything, didn't push, just looked at me with that soft, steady patience that cracked something open in my chest. Not lust. Not yet. It was something deeper. Recognition. Like he was whispering, "I see you. I really see you." And I didn't even know how much I needed that until it was already too late. It started as nothing. A favor. A glass of water. A conversation about books. But isn't that how the most dangerous things begin? Not with fireworks, but with the quiet feeling that someone finally notices the sound of your silence. He was just helping out. That's what I told myself. That's what I wanted to believe. But the truth? His eyes lingered too long, like he was trying to read my mind, like he already knew what he'd find if he looked deep enough. Noah started coming by more often that summer, always with a reason, a tool, a question about his aunt. Something harmless on the surface, but those moments? They never felt harmless. There was this tension. It sat between us like static in the air, like the charge right before a summer storm. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that I was just lonely, tired, that I was projecting something that wasn't there. But then, there were these little moments, small, fleeting things that stayed with me long after he left. Like the day I was gardening out back, sweating, dirt on my face, hair stuck to my cheek, and he walked up behind me. I didn't even hear him at first. He laughed softly and said, "You missed a spot," and then he reached down and brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. It was nothing, except it wasn't, because I felt it all the way down my spine. Like someone had finally touched me in a way that said, "You're still here. And you're still beautiful." One night, we had a little movie thing with the kids. My youngest wanted to watch something silly, some superhero thing. Noah stayed, sat with them on the floor, joking, passing popcorn like he'd always belonged there. After the movie ended and the kids were asleep, he stayed behind to help me clean up. Then we ended up out on the porch, just the two of us. The air was warm, but not stifling. The sky was that perfect kind of navy, and the cicadas were humming like they knew something I didn't. We talked. About life. About growing up. He told me about his dad. How he left when Noah was still little. How he was always trying to prove something to everyone, teachers, coaches, himself. "Sometimes," he said, "I feel like I'm wearing someone else's skin." And I understood that more than I should have. I told him how I used to paint every weekend. How I had dreams that didn't fit inside our mortgage or school pickups or PTA meetings. There was a pause. Then he looked at me and said, "You don't talk like that with your husband, do you?" And I froze. Because no, I didn't. I hadn't had a real conversation with Michael in months. Not like this. Noah didn't say anything after that. Just sat beside me in the quiet. But something shifted that night. Because after that, everything felt more intimate. More charged. There were texts. Simple ones at first. Still thinking about that conversation. "What was the name of that book you mentioned? You ever miss the version of yourself before all this?" And me? I answered every time, because I did miss her. The version of me that had opinions. That made art. That felt alive. And somehow this younger man, this boy really, by the standards of my world, was reminding me who she used to be. There was another day, just a normal Tuesday. I had music playing in the kitchen while I was chopping vegetables, and he walked in through the back door like it was his home. He set down a bag of nails from the hardware store and paused. Wait, is that Bon Iver? I looked up, smiled. You know Bon Iver? He grinned. Of course I do. I've got this playlist. We ended up swapping songs that night. My phone and his, bouncing tracks back and forth like secrets. He sent me one later, after midnight. Thought this one sounded like you. It was soft, haunting, raw, the kind of song that makes you feel things you've tried to forget. I started dreaming about him. Not sexual, not yet. Just those dreams where someone looks at you, and it feels like home. Like safety. Like desire wrapped in warmth. And the next time I saw him, I felt it between us. This magnetic pull that made everything feel wrong and right at the same time. One day, I was reaching for a pot on the top shelf. He was behind me, helping. I lost my balance slightly, and his hands went to my waist, steadying me. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. And for one long breath, we just stood there. Close. Still. Suspended in that impossible space between what we shouldn't do and what we already felt. I started asking myself the questions I didn't want to answer. Why do I feel lighter when he's around? Why do I catch myself smiling at his texts, checking my phone at night like I'm 17 again? Why am I craving a voice that isn't my husband's? Why does this feel like a secret I want to keep, but also like something I need more of? And the worst one? Why do I feel more like myself when I'm with him than I have in years? He was too young, and I was too married. But we kept orbiting each other like two things pulled by gravity we didn't understand. I kept telling myself, this is just a crush. A phase. A fantasy. But deep down, I already knew. We were standing on the edge of something I couldn't walk away from. And once you look at someone like that, once you feel seen in a way that opens something inside you, you can't unfeel it. You can try. God knows I tried. But what started as a flicker was turning into a flame. And I wasn't sure I wanted to put it out. It started with a box of old photo albums. That's what I asked him to help me with. Nothing complicated. Just a few things I'd been meaning to move up to the attic, but my back had been acting up and Michael was out of town again, sales conference or something. Honestly, I'd stopped keeping track. The kids were with my parents for the weekend. They'd begged for sleepovers and I gave in. I thought I'd get some rest. Maybe repaint the downstairs bathroom. Clean out the pantry. Instead, I called Noah. I told myself it was innocent. That he was just being helpful. Like always. But when he showed up at the door that Saturday afternoon, something felt different. The air was strange. Charged. Like the sky knew what was coming before we did. He smiled when he saw me, same easy smile. But there was a flicker in his eyes, something unreadable. We carried the boxes to the living room. One of them slipped from his hands and burst open, old Polaroids tumbling everywhere. We both laughed. I knelt to help him gather them. Our fingers touched. Just for a second. But it sent a jolt straight up my spine. And then, the sky opened up. Thunder cracked. The downpour started, fast, hard, relentless. I looked up at the window and muttered, "Guess you're stuck here for a bit." He chuckled. "Hope you've got snacks." I laughed too, trying to keep things light. Harmless. But the silence that followed? It wasn't harmless. He was soaked. His shirt clung to him, tight against his chest. His hair dripped onto the hardwood floor. I grabbed a towel from the hallway closet and held it out to him. And when he reached for it, our hands met again. His fingers wrapped around mine, warm and steady. Neither of us pulled away. He looked at me then. Really looked. And I swear, it felt like he could see everything. Every secret. Every ache. Every lonely night I never admitted to having. I turned to walk back to the kitchen, pretending I didn't notice the way my pulse had quickened. But I did. And so did he. I tucked a damp strand of hair behind my ear and reached for the kettle, like I could hide in the sound of boiling water. And then, from behind me, he said it. So soft, I almost missed it. "You don't have to pretend anymore." I froze, my hand still gripping the mug. I turned around, slow. Pretend what? I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. But he didn't hesitate. That you don't feel it too. I felt like the room tilted. Like everything that had been holding me together, routine, motherhood, marriage, suddenly felt paper thin. And I panicked. I shook my head, fast, like I could erase the moment. Noah, you should go, I whispered. He didn't argue. He just nodded. Quiet. Respectful. He walked to the door, towel still in his hands. But when I opened it for him, I didn't move out of the way. I stood there, frozen, and so did he. The rain was pounding just inches away. But the real storm? It was inside that room. We were inches apart. And then, he leaned in. Not fast. Not forceful. Just closer. His lips barely brushed mine. Not a kiss. Not really. But it was enough to steal the breath right out of my chest. I stepped back, my heart in my throat. He didn't say a word. Just looked at me, like he already knew I'd replay that moment 100 times. And he was right. I didn't kiss him. But in that moment, God, I wanted to. More than I've ever wanted anything in my entire life. I stood there after he left, the door still cracked open. Rain spraying the floor, my hands shaking. And I realized something that terrified me more than anything. This wasn't a crush. This wasn't a fantasy. This was real. And if I didn't stop it now, it would consume everything. But I didn't stop it? Not really. Because somewhere inside me, a door had opened, and I wasn't sure I wanted to close it. The next time I saw him, we didn't speak. We didn't need to. We just collided. Like months of stolen glances, quiet breaths, and restless nights had finally broken through our skin. It was in my art studio. Mid-morning. I told everyone I was running errands. I wasn't. I'd left the door unlocked. Maybe I wanted him to come. Noah stepped in without knocking. The second I turned around, his hands were already on my waist. And for a second, just a second, I hesitated. But then I breathed him in. His scent, that earthy mix of cologne and summer air. And everything inside me gave way. I didn't care that I was a mother. I didn't care that I had a husband. All I could feel was the way he kissed me like he'd been starving and I was the only thing he'd ever wanted. It wasn't just about sex. It never was. It was the way he looked at me like I was art. Like every inch of my skin meant something. Like I wasn't invisible. After that day, we found moments. Stolen time. That's what I called it in my head. We didn't make plans. It was instinct. A glance, a message, a silent agreement to meet in places that didn't belong to anyone but us. In his car parked by the lake, fog clouding the windows. Behind my studio curtain, surrounded by unfinished canvases and the smell of oil paint. In the park after dark when the world had gone to sleep and we sat under a tree pretending time had stopped. Once, we shared a milkshake like teenagers. I told him he was ridiculous. He told me I was glowing. Noah never made me feel cheap. He made me feel alive. Like I was more than someone's wife. Like I wasn't just a name written on a mortgage and a family calendar. He asked me questions, real ones. About my art, my dreams, what made me cry when I was 10. He remembered the names of the characters in the novels I liked. He remembered me. But with every moment we carved out, the guilt grew too. It lived in the corners of my house like a shadow I couldn't sweep away. Every time I looked at Michael. Every time I kissed my kids goodnight. There was a part of me screaming, "What are you doing?" I couldn't look my husband in the eye anymore. He hadn't changed. Still kind. Still predictable. But he hadn't looked at me like Noah did in years. Maybe I didn't want him to. Every time Noah touched me, it felt like breathing again. Like for the first time in so long, I wasn't just functioning. I was feeling. But when I came home, the weight of what I was doing hit like waves. I'd sit in the bathroom, lights off, just hugging myself. Trying to feel something other than torn. Because that's what I was torn. Between the woman I'd become over 15 years of routine. And the woman Noah pulled out of me like she'd been waiting all along. He'd text me things like, "Still thinking about the way you look today." Or, "I can't stop hearing your laugh." And I'd smile without meaning to right there in the kitchen while I was stirring spaghetti or folding laundry. I'd hide that smile, tuck it away, pretend I was daydreaming about something innocent. But it wasn't innocent. None of it was. And yet, I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. Noah made me feel like I mattered, like I was worth the trouble. He gave me pieces of myself I didn't even know I'd lost. And every time we touched, every sigh, every laugh, every whispered, "I missed you," felt like rebellion. A rebellion against the silence I'd been drowning in for years. But rebellion comes with a cost. Because love, if that's what it was, never stays hidden forever. And I knew, deep down, the line we'd crossed, there was no going back from it. I was in too deep. And soon, someone was going to notice. You can only juggle fire for so long before something burns. And for me, it started with the little things. The way Michael, my husband, began pausing mid-conversation, watching me instead of speaking. The way his eyes narrowed slightly when I laughed at something on my phone and turned the screen face down. The silence at dinner got louder. I'd ask him how his day was, and he'd just shrug. I wasn't sure if it was guilt or paranoia, but suddenly everything felt like a test I was failing. One evening, out of nowhere, he said, "You've been different lately." I asked, "Different how?" He didn't answer. Just stared. And then went back to his fork like it never happened. It got worse when our neighbor, Mrs. Langley, came over with her usual nosy smile. She was holding a tray of muffins and casually mentioned, "That boy Noah sure has been hanging around here a lot, helping with the fence again?" I froze. I laughed it off, told her he was just being neighborly, that he was sweet to help with odd jobs. But inside, I could feel my chest tightening, like the walls were shifting. Then came Jenna, my best friend since high school. She and I were having lunch. The usual, chicken salad, iced tea, gossip about husbands and aging niece. Out of nowhere, she looked at me differently. Real different. She tilted her head and said, "You don't look tired anymore. You don't look sad either." I blinked. "What do you mean?" She leaned in a little and whispered, "You look lit up." "Who is he?" I laughed louder than I should have. Denial slipping out too fast. But Jenna just smiled. That's sad, knowing smile women give each other when the truth is sitting right there between the lines. And then Noah. He started wanting more. More than moments. More than secrets and hidden kisses. One night, after we'd made love in my studio and I was still catching my breath, he whispered, "Let's go away. Just you and me. A weekend, anything. I just want you in the light, Danielle." My heart dropped. Because that's the thing about stolen time, it's not built for sunlight. I pulled away, slowly. Wrapped the blanket tighter around myself, and stared at the painting in the corner I still hadn't finished. He touched my arm. "Say something." So I did. "This isn't forever, Noah." He blinked, confused. Hurt written all over his face. "Then what is it?" he asked. "A dream? Or just a lie we tell ourselves to feel better?" I didn't answer right away. Because deep down, I didn't know. I wanted it to be real. But I also wanted to run. I wanted the thrill, but not the consequence. I wanted to feel alive without tearing my life apart. But life doesn't work like that. And Noah, he was starting to see that. He started texting less. When we did meet, there was a sadness in his eyes I hadn't seen before. One night, he asked me if I loved him. I looked at him. My Noah, the boy who saw me, the man who made me feel again. And I said, "I love how I feel when I'm with you." It wasn't enough. Not for him. Not anymore. Her voice is slower now. Regret sliding in like a shadow over her words. I started missing things. I forgot Michael's work dinner. I double-booked my son's soccer game with a meet-up with Noah. I couldn't keep the timeline straight anymore. And that's when Michael started pulling away. He stopped asking questions. Stopped showing concern. That's when it got scarier. Because the silence, it wasn't passive. It was watchful. I knew he knew something. I just didn't know what he knew yet. Every time I left the room, I could feel eyes on my back. Every ding of my phone felt like a landmine waiting to explode. Noah still wanted more. But I was crumbling under the weight of it all. The thrill had turned into fear. Every kiss came with a countdown. Every touch with a risk. Every breath with a question I couldn't answer. I used to think affairs were just about sex. About someone being selfish. Weak. But what no one tells you is that sometimes it's about needing to feel seen. About needing to feel like someone knows your name beyond the titles. Mom, wife, neighbor. But now? Now, I was a ghost in my own life. Haunted by two truths. That I loved the feeling Noah gave me. And that I might be destroying the people who loved me most because of it. I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped inside. It was too quiet. No kids' laughter. No background noise from the TV. Just silence. And then I saw him, Michael, sitting at the kitchen table. Phone in hand. His shoulders tense, his face pale, but his eyes were hollow. Like whatever lived behind them had just died. I didn't have to ask. I knew. I'd forgotten to delete the photo. Just one. It was nothing graphic, just me, laughing in Noah's car. Wind in my hair, no makeup, eyes full of life I hadn't shown my husband in years. But he knew. And maybe that was worse than any bedroom confession. He looked up at me, and he didn't even speak at first. Just held the phone up. His hand shaking. I tried to talk, to reach for him, but he flinched. Like I was something dangerous. Something he didn't recognize. Then he said it. How long? That's all. Just, how long? I opened my mouth, but no sound came. So he stood, slamming the phone down on the table so hard I jumped. How long, Danielle? Tell me what part of our life was real. The kids heard us. I know they did. My daughter peeked out from the hallway, eyes wide, clutching her stuffed bear. I wanted to scream, to fix it, to make time rewind just 10 seconds. Just enough to undo it. But you can't. When truth explodes, it doesn't give you a warning. It just rips through everything. Was it him? That boy, he shouted. And I broke. Right there, on the cold tile floor. I dropped to my knees, covered my face, and sobbed. Told him the truth. Told him it was Noah. That it started small. That I never meant for it to go that far. That I was lonely. That I felt invisible. That I just wanted to feel like a person again. But how do you explain to the man you built a life with that you burned the whole thing down just to feel something? That your heart needed more than duty? That you were starving in a house full of food? He didn't yell after that. He just looked at me. And that silence? It was louder than every scream that came before. He walked past me, gathered the kids, and left. No door slam. No dramatic exit. Just gone. And then, the final blow. Noah came by later that evening. I hadn't told him yet. He showed up smiling, holding takeout from our favorite spot. But one look at my face and his smile faded. I told him we were done. That we couldn't keep pretending like this had no cost. That I broke everything. That it wasn't just my marriage on the line, it was my children's lives too. He asked, "Are you choosing him over me?" And I said, "I'm choosing the version of myself that doesn't destroy people." He didn't argue. He didn't cry. He just stood there, nodded once, and left. No kiss. No last hug. Just the sound of the door closing. And that's how it ended. Not with fireworks. Not with love letters or some poetic goodbye. Just 3 broken people. And one silence that's still ringing in my ears. The silence after the storm is the hardest part. No shouting. No chaos. No one asking why. Just emptiness. I moved out a week after everything fell apart. We both knew the house was haunted now, not with ghosts, but with memories we couldn't walk past without flinching. The kids stayed with Michael at first. It was the right thing, but it broke something in me I didn't know could even break. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my daughter's face that night, the fear in her eyes, the confusion. I hated myself for that most of all. So I started going to therapy. Not the kind where you lie on a couch and blame your parents. The kind where someone looks you in the eye and asks, "What part of you are you trying to save?" I didn't have an answer at first. All I knew was, I had nothing left to hide behind. No title. No routine. No smile to cover up the ache. Just me. Whoever that was now. I started journaling. Not because I thought I'd figure it all out, but because I needed somewhere to put the pain. Some nights, I'd write the same sentence over and over like a prayer. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Other nights, I wrote to Noah. Letters I'd never sent. Just pieces of my heart that still beat in his direction. But I didn't contact him. Not once. He didn't either. And maybe that was mercy. Or maybe it was proof that whatever we had only lived in the cracks of my old life. And now that the foundation had crumbled, it had nowhere left to hide. I started painting again. It had been years. Since before the kids. Before the mortgage. Before all of it. At first, it was messy. Angry. Loud with color and pain. But then one day, I started a self-portrait. Not the polished kind. Not posed or pretty. But raw. Honest. Undone. I painted my tired eyes. My bitten nails. The faint laugh lines that held stories no one had asked about in years. And when I stepped back, I cried. Because for the first time in a long, long time, I saw me. Not the wife. Not the mother. Not the woman who had an affair. Just a woman. Still healing. Still breaking. Still here. I didn't just lose Noah. I didn't just lose my marriage. I lost who I was pretending to be. And in the ruins, I started to find who I really am. I don't know how the story ends yet. But I know this chapter? It was necessary. Painful. But necessary. Because sometimes you have to shatter to finally see all the pieces you've been hiding from yourself. It had been 2 years. 2 whole years of therapy, of rebuilding, of forgiving myself in layers. Of raising my kids with love and honesty. Of learning how to make coffee for one and not feel lonely doing it. I'd started teaching painting at the community center. I'd built something new. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. That day, I was at this little secondhand bookstore downtown. One of those cozy, dusty places where the shelves lean slightly and the floorboards whisper with every step. I was browsing the poetry section, something I'd picked up again lately, looking for a line that might explain my heart or at least hold it for a while. And then, I looked up, and there he was. Noah, standing 2 rows away, holding a book in one hand, thumb between the pages like he'd been caught in a thought. He looked older. Not aged, just more grounded. Like the boy I'd once met had finally become the man he was always meant to be. Our eyes met. Just for a second. And in that single glance, I felt everything. The heat. The ache. The softness. The sorrow. He didn't come over. I didn't call his name. We just stood there, watching each other with that small, private ache that used to scream through our skin. And then, he gave the faintest nod, a soft, almost smile. And I returned it, not with regret, not with longing, but with gratitude. Because some stories don't end with a kiss. Some end with a quiet understanding. And a promise to never forget the way it once felt to be completely, terrifyingly alive. I stepped out into the sunlight. Warm, clear, free, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running from anything. I was just walking forward. And that was enough. Have you ever loved someone you weren't supposed to? Felt that pull so deep it shook the ground beneath your feet? Would you risk everything, your family, your future, your sense of who you are, just to feel alive again? To touch a part of yourself that's been asleep for so long, you thought it might never wake? Because sometimes, the most dangerous desire is the one that makes you feel whole. I'm Danielle. And this was my story. A true infidelity confession. A Reddit cheating story turned real life, where forbidden love wasn't just about betrayal, but about finding yourself in the wreckage. So tell me in the comments, have you ever been caught between loyalty and longing? Between what's safe and what sets your soul on fire? Subscribe to Cheating Confession Diary, where the stories go deeper, the truths hit harder, and the feelings linger long after the video ends. Because here, you're never alone.